It's time to do the due diligence about Venezuela. Today we discuss.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
If you follow this content and this platform, you know I'm very bullish about Venezuela in many regards. We are still early on the curve on many things, and compared to the perception of many internationals that have lagging information and the narrative from the West, you are still back in the curve, and because we're way ahead that. And the issue is that most of the time the narrative is behind that the actual performance or the actual situation at any regard. I'm not talking about Venezuela, I'm talking about everything. For instance, right now it's very popular the talk about AI and how disruptive AI will be or is becoming. A couple of years ago, it was the metaverse. We're going to live on the metaverse, and that's your sale, I presume. And there are many narratives all over the world, and usually the narratives are lagging compared to the actual information on real time. Now, when I'm saying that I'm bullish on Venezuela, I love my country, and I see a lot of good things coming on the next 10 years. I'm not saying just rush and come here to the country, move here to Venezuela from the get-go, and just invest all of your money, all of your savings, something like that. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that maybe for a particular profile, Venezuela can provide a lot of value on the future and possibly actually on the present, depending on your particular profile, of course. But what I'm saying right now is that instead of just listening to the narrative, CNN, BBC, and Fox News, that kind of thing, do your own research, but it's time to do your own due diligence. Now, what does it mean to do your due diligence about the country? First, of course, you need information. You need the most accurate information possible. If you live on the West and your network is from the West, you're going to have very inaccurate information, very outdated information, and getting, information about Venezuela is hard, even here for myself. But of course, I already have the experience, and experience has no substitution. But is still managed to get such information, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And of course, that's why I have a newsletter in order to share a little bit more of that information. Now, what's going on? That Venezuela, most people have those particular myths that right now are myths. They were reality like 10 years ago, and right now they are myths. For instance, hyperinflation. We don't have hyperinflation in Venezuela. That's one of the myths. The other thing is regarding communism and socialism that is very skewed. Usually that's propaganda from right-wing media. I'm not a left-leaning guy by any chance, but usually right-wing media likes to exaggerate what happened in Venezuela and call it socialism and communism in order to sell their own right-wing populistic agenda. Very good. Nothing against left or right. I'm not a politician, anything like that. So it's just a trend that I see from right-wing media. Very good. I'm saying that. I'm not saying sign blank checks to right-wing politicians, because politicians should not be trusted at all. Anyway, but I'm not going to get political today. That's the other thing. Other myth that you have is that we have scarcity here in the country, and that is completely inaccurate. We used to have scarcity of goods and services during 2016 and 17, and 17 was the worst, of course. Right now in 2024, Venezuela actually it's been fully shelved, fully supplied. You can find products from all over the world on your local grocery store and supermarket. Of course, you have to pay a premium for that. But indeed, we are very fully stocked. And that's one of the things about, having a rich or poor society is the access of goods and services. And if you have the supply of goods and services, the more supply of goods and services you have, hence you are richer. And on that particular regard, Venezuela is richer, quote unquote, compared to 2017. Also, that many people think that Venezuela is, communist, like, the old Soviet Union or the old China with Mao, or like North Korea, something like that. No, that is not the case. You actually have some freedom. You have freedom, of course, here in Venezuela, except for a couple of things. Just don't break the law or something like that. You're going to be fine, and you can go to the beach, go to the mall, go to a park, whatever. You can drink outside of the liquor store here in Venezuela. Of course, they get fines and that kind of thing, but I mean, it's a funny thing, but it can be done here in the country. I see it all the time. I don't do it, but I see it all the time, and that people seem very happy. Anyways, the other thing that we have to address is regarding socialism and communism. That actually, I will say, we have right now, it's not like people live from handouts. I will say we have right now a chronic capitalistic system rather than a socialist/communist one. So on that regard, I will say that's the narrative that is abroad, and I could understand why, but still very inaccurate and outdated. Other thing that I have to address, that Venezuela is not this dirt cheap or banana republic. Venezuela used to be the wealthiest country in Latin America. We still have infrastructure, we still have culture, we still have human capital, we still have one of the most educated population in the world. Actually, Venezuelans like to go to school, like to go to college, and most of them don't do it getting, a BS degree, like gender studies or something like that. The Venezuelans like to go STEM, science, engineering, mathematics, that way. Or just get useful things and careers like accounting, law, IT, things like that. Anyway, so we still have a very strong human capital in the country. It's not like the best people already migrated from Venezuela and the worst people stay. That's not the case. Actually, you might argue the opposite, but that will be unfair to my fellow Venezuelans abroad. That's not the case. We have a bunch of great people abroad and also a few rotten apples abroad as well, and those are the ones that give us bad reputation abroad. Also, I have to talk that Venezuela is not this poor country that you're going to come here with just a few dollars and you're going to be a king, you're going to be a baller. That's not the case. Venezuela is actually expensive for most people. I'm talking usually the poorest people. It's very expensive. Making ends meet is around $1,000 and $2,000 per month per household, something of that nature. Afterwards, it's awesome living in Venezuela, but most people struggle in order to make such income. And that's one of the things that we have to fix right now here in the country. But if you think that you're going to come here just bowling with a few dollars, that's not going to be the case. Now, the funny thing regarding the cost of living in Venezuela is that for rich people, actually Venezuela is very, very cheap because the high-end amenities that most wealthy people need actually are going to be cheaper here in Venezuela. You can have the same lifestyle that you have in Miami or Dubai or places like that, cents on the dollar, here on the country, and especially if you're a male, but also if you're a female as well. So the country has a lot to provide, not just being a cheap country. Also, many people think that Venezuela is a banana republic, like, a sub-Saharan African nation. That's not the case. That, of course, we had an 80% GDP collapse, indeed, and that affected a lot. But Venezuela is not like Africa. It's not like these countries in Asia that are, they have economic issues, that kind of thing, with a bunch of extreme poverty. Still, we have a high poverty rates that have to be responsible for that. But Venezuela is not this banana republic, I have to say, this very dirt cheap place. Remember, Venezuela used to be actually one of the richest places in the world. Yet again, I have to mention that. And the other thing is that we had services. For instance, we had the flight of the Concorde, the supersonic flight. Here in the country, just a handful of cities all over the world. The Concorde used to travel to both Paris and London. It was a French-Anglo joint venture, something like that. But anyways, Venezuela was just on the short list of places where the Concorde used to fly. And Caracas, the capital, was included on such a short list before that New York was included on the Concord flight. So funny thing though. So that can tell you that Venezuela is a place that rather than being this dirt, cheap, poor place, Venezuelans like good things, good standards of living. And the last thing is about the people. Something I have to explain about the Venezuelan people. They like the good things. They like the status. They like to have treats. The Venezuelans are not conformists. And I know that most of you abroad are watching, maybe already met a few Venezuelans. And you see them, of course, struggling because they are just arriving to another country and trying to create something from scratch without a good hand. However, the Venezuelans like the good things in life, dressing well, having a good car, having a good home, having, like status, and that's one of the reasons why they migrated, sometimes mistakenly, but they thought that they could improve their standards of living abroad, and in most cases was not the case, but in a handful of cases, that is actually true. So it's a minority, let's say like 20%, they were able to improve their standards of living abroad, especially in places like the US, in Europe, and actually in a handful of places in Latin America. But the main point is that Venezuelans are very resilient and they're going to work their tails off in order to improve their standards of living. That meaning working extra hours, taking more risks, getting better education on a Western country, whatever might be the case, they are going to work their tails off in order to increase their status and their standards of living. And people here in the country are doing the same. And the synergy that we're going to have and the opportunities we're going to have in the future just for that fact is something that you have to witness. Final thought. What you should do about Venezuela if you have a remote interest. First, be well informed. Also, I'm not saying that you should move here to Venezuela or you should invest here in Venezuela, but it's time that actually you start doing your due diligence, of course, depending on who you are and your particular profile, and at least have a well-informed opinion.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.